I knew I was working under a dictator. The day Damon fired an intern over font size. Not performance, not attitude, font size. The kid used 11-point Calibri on a procurement report instead of the company's standard 12-point Times New Roman. Damon didn't even blink. He walked into the bullpen, leaned over the cubicle like a vulture in a tailored blazer, and said, "Pack your desk, Kyle. We take precision seriously here." Kyle thought it was a joke till security walked him out holding a sad little box with 2 energy drinks and a picture of his dog. That's how Damon ruled. Fear in a coffee cup measured down to the microgram. He was a regional operations manager. But don't let the title fool you. He acted like he owned the oxygen. Clipboard always in hand like it was an extension of his ego. Bald head gleaming like a warning flare. He'd float through the floor sniffing for weakness, inefficiency, or rebellion. Nobody called him Damon unless they were in HR. To the rest of us, he was a taskmaster. Behind his back, the tyrant. And somehow I lasted 5 years. Not because I was exceptional, because I was invisible. That was the trick. Don't shine. Don't stumble. Don't speak unless spoken to. I became a beige blur of corporate compliance. But while Damon played Napoleon with a spreadsheet fetish, I was watching something else. The company bleeding out slow and quiet from a neck. Supply chain delays. Misrouted deliveries. Overtime budgets flaring while products sat untouched in the wrong warehouse. Everyone knew it. No one could say it. The official answer was always fluctuations, seasonal variance, or my personal favorite, proactive pivoting. So I stopped asking for permission and started building salvation. I called it SORA, Smart Optimization, and Resource Allocator. Not because it was catchy, because I didn't have time for branding. I wrote it in chunks during lunch breaks, late nights, and the sacred hour between 5 and 6 a.m. before the office zombies clocked in. At first, it was just a script that pinged zone inventories and suggested swaps to avoid shortages. Then, I layered in demand forecasting, historical inefficiencies, regional transit delays. Before long, I had a crude AI system crawling our back end and spitting out solutions no one else could see. It started small. One rerouted shipment here. One corrected labor forecast there. I'd test it by slipping tips to logistics coordinators. Hey, might want to shift that truckload. Weather looks rough in Cleveland. Or, think we're overstaffed in Zone D tomorrow. They took the bait. Nobody questioned how I knew. Hell, half of them were just happy someone was paying attention. Damon didn't notice. Not at first. He thought the improvements were his doing. Our quarterly numbers ticked up, and he strutted around like he discovered time travel. He sent out a floor-wide email with the subject line "Victory through Vigilance" and a JPEG of his own face, giving a thumbs up like some fascist emoji. I just watched, quiet, careful, because I knew what would happen if he found out I was the ghost in the machine. And the machine was growing smarter. By month 3, Sora could predict when and where our system would choke before it happened. I fed it into a private dashboard, crude but effective. A friend in compliance joked it looked like a Cold War radar map. Every that was a near miss. Every cluster a warning. I knew things Damon didn't. Like how our Kansas facility was 4 days from a total gridlock because of outdated routing tables. That our Midwest fleet was double booked for a holiday weekend nobody planned around. I wanted to tell someone. But I didn't because by then the layoffs had begun. One morning, a guy in procurement came back from lunch to find his monitor gone. A week later, 5 people from scheduling were restructured. HR called it streamlining. Damon called it trimming fat. He even updated the whiteboard outside his office. Efficiency champions, updated weekly. Your team improved KPIs, you got a gold star. If not, your name vanished. The message was clear. Fix things or disappear. Sora was fixing things. Damon was taking credit. And I was running out of time. So I made a copy, not of the tool, of the proof. System logs, metrics, before and after snapshots of every problem Sora had preemptively solved. I encrypted everything, stuck it on a black USB drive, and taped it to the back of the break room coffee machine, just in case. Because I knew the day was coming when Damon would smell something he didn't like. Progress he couldn't explain. And when that day came, He wouldn't ask questions. He'd come for blood. The first real clue that Sora was more than a glorified side hustle came on a Tuesday. The kind of gray, overcooked Tuesday where the coffee tastes like printer ink and your inbox breathes fire. I was halfway through scrubbing last month's warehouse logs when I got a ping from logistics. Not my team, not even my building, just a supervisor named Tanya asking, "Hey, did you send someone to fix our Route 19 cluster?" I hadn't. Not exactly. But I had flagged it in Sora 3 days earlier, based on old trends and a spike in late driver check-ins. The tool suggested rerouting 4 shipments to avoid what it called predictive cascade failure. Sounded dramatic. But I took its advice and quietly messaged Tanya's assistant with a heads up. Might want to reroute these pallets before Friday. That was it. I didn't expect a thank you. But now Tanya was asking questions. "It saved us 6 hours and like 15 grand, she typed. No clue how you spotted it, but good catch. I typed something polite back. Just a shrug emoji and lucky guess. That became the script. Lucky guess. Educated hunch. Gut feeling. Sora was racking up wins. Another team in warehouse. Scheduling used a suggestion I whispered to them. Result. No overtime needed for first time in 3 months. The dispatch office in Pittsburgh hit a record low return rate because I nudged someone to delay a shipment by 2 hours. Every time I fed the outcome back into Sora's engine, it learned, adapted, got sharper. Meanwhile, Damon strutted down the halls like Moses parting the Dead Sea. "Keep executing like this," he crowed one morning while sipping his artisan latte, "and will be corporate's poster child for agile transformation." A phrase that meant jack, but made executives clap like trained seals. By now, I was quietly managing a Go system inside a real one, like hiding a Ferrari engine in a Ford Fiesta. I wasn't looking for praise, just impact. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't eat at me, watching my work get swallowed into Damon's self-congratulatory PowerPoints while I sat quietly chewing my lip through every meeting. Then came the shove. Damon summoned me to his glass cube of an office for alignment. Translation. He'd smelled something off and wanted to crush it before it blossomed into anything real. "You're spending too much time in peripheral systems," he said, eyes scanning some report like it offended him. "There's a reason we have structure. You're not paid to innovate. You're paid to execute." I stared at the wall behind him where he'd hung a framed poster that said, "Order equals strength." Probably bought it from the same catalog that sells fake diplomas and walnut desk nameplates. "I'm just trying to keep operations smooth," I said, careful. "Sometimes the bottlenecks aren't obvious unless you look deeper." Damon leaned forward like a dad about to ground his kid for thinking independently. "This is not your sandbox," he said. "Let central planning handle strategic processes. You stay in your swim lane. That clear, Crystal?" I walked out of that office vibrating, not angry, charged, like my brain had finally flipped some safety switch. I'd done everything by the book for years. And when I finally found something that worked, something that could actually save us, I was told to shut it down and shut up. So I didn't. I kept feeding Sora. Just stopped mentioning it. I let the data speak where I couldn't. A week later, I found a sticky note tucked under my keyboard. No signature, just neat cursive writing on yellow paper. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You've saved my team's ass twice this month. Don't let them kill it." And at the bottom, an email handle I recognized, a senior analyst from distribution who'd been there since before Damon's reign. She wasn't loud, wasn't political. She saw things, really saw them. I messaged her, cautious. She replied late that night, "Your tool, it's different. Feels like something real, not corporate voodoo. You ever think of what it might look like outside these walls?" That one sentence knocked something loose in my chest. Because up till now, I thought of Sora as this little secret mission to keep my sanity intact. A duct tape rebellion hiding under spreadsheets and macros. But she made me realize I wasn't just patching holes. I was building something that didn't need Damon's permission to matter. And for the first time, the idea of taking it beyond the company didn't feel like fantasy. It felt like escape. It started with a smile. Not mine, Damon's. The kind of slow, lipless smile you only see in crime dramas, right before the villain pulls out the rug. It was during our Thursday stand-up, which Damon insisted on calling mission sinks, like we were a black ops unit instead of underpaid logistics clerks with carpal tunnel. He sauntered in late, as usual, holding a triple espresso and a fresh clipboard. But instead of his normal bark and grunt routine, he just stood there watching us, sipping slow, eyes flicking between faces like he was mentally sorting us into keep and cut. And then he said it. "We'll be conducting a procedural audit over the next week," he said, voice honeyed. "Some irregularities have been flagged regarding system usage, task compliance, and, most concerning, unauthorized tool deployment." A pause. I felt my stomach drop like a floorboard had given out under my chair. He didn't look at me. He didn't have to. Every word was aimed with sniper precision. I knew it. He knew I knew it. But the room just nodded, expressionless. Good little cogs. The next morning, I lost access to half my drives. No warning, no email, just files vanishing mid-keystroke, like they'd been blacked out by digital mercenaries. I pinged IT. They said it was part of a routine compliance sweep. I asked if it had anything to do with my recent work. They responded with a ticket number and radio silence. By lunch, my ID badge was flagged under review. Couldn't access the analytics dashboard I'd used for Sora. The logs, the internal map, the outputs. Gone. Then came the summons. 3:45 p.m. conference room C. No agenda, just my name and Damon's signature at the bottom of a calendar. Invite with the subject, audit follow-up. When I walked in, he was already there, flanked by a compliance officer and some kid from HR who looked like he still had acne under his beard. He slid a packet across the table, like I was being read my last rites. The cover sheet said it all. Internal review, non-compliant workflow behavior. J.M. Spencer. Damon didn't let the compliance drone speak first. He wanted the kill shot. "You've been operating an unapproved optimization system without managerial consent," he said flatly, looms with timestamps stretching back 2 fiscal years. Early dev notes showing build iterations crossing to a page with time logs and screen captures. This behavior constitutes unauthorized deployment of internal resources and violation of our acceptable use policy. I blinked. The system isn't even on a network. It's standalone. I've only used suggestions. You use company time, company data, and company intent. He cut in, voice like ice cracking. Intent is ownership. You don't get to innovate for yourself here. You innovate for us. It felt like being buried alive in legalese. My chest was tight, ears ringing. I could barely breathe, let alone explain the 1,000 hours of unpaid time I poured into Sora. The weekends, the early mornings, the saved shipments, the man-hours shaved from chaos didn't matter. Damon had already turned the blade. Effective immediately, the HR kid muttered, reading from a template. "You are issued a formal reprimand and a $1,700 fine for misuse of company resources. Repeated behavior may result in termination." He slid the final page toward me. A signature line. A checkbox for acknowledged. I didn't sign. I just stared at it while something in me shriveled, quiet and private and permanent. I'd worked here for 8 years. Not a single infraction. Not a missed deadline. Hell, I trained half the floor when they on board. And now I was a problem. A cautionary tale. As I walked back to my desk under the weight of 20 staring eyes, I could hear the buzz starting, whispered Slack messages, side eyes. No one said anything out loud, but they all knew I was radioactive now. That night, I stayed in the office late, way past the janitors, past the hum of copper wheels and vending machine whirs. Just me and the quiet glow of the monitors. I plugged in my old drive, the one I'd used to back up Sora before things got ugly, and began the process of sanitizing. Scrubbing data, wiping file trails, renaming directory paths with boring names. Q2 Toolkit, Ops Archive, old, the usual camouflage. I didn't know where this was going. I just knew I had to preserve the thing they were trying to erase from existence. My tool, my proof, my spine. I hovered over the resign button on the HR Portal 3 separate times that week, but I didn't click it because Damon thought he'd buried me with a fine and a formal slap in the face. But I wasn't dead. I was just clearing the wreckage. The final blow didn't come with fireworks or fury. It came with calendar etiquette. Subject line: performance review escalation. Immediate attendance required. Location: Conference Room F, 11 a.m. sharp. Attendees: J.M. Spencer, D. Rothwell, K. Maxwell, HR, L. Daniels, Compliance. When I walked into the room, it was already iced over. Damon sat at the head of the table, fingers steepled like a priest prepping for a corporate exorcism. Karen from HR wore her usual expression, tight-lipped sympathy wrapped in legal insulation. The compliance guy just stared at the table like he didn't want to be there, but would absolutely help carry the body out back if asked. No introductions, no chit-chat. Just Damon clear his throat like a judge, then launching into a speech that felt rehearsed to death. James. He said, never Jim, never Jamie, never my name the way people who respected you said it. After our recent review, it's clear your continued actions represent a pattern of willful insubordination, cloaked in the language of innovation. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. I was done giving him anything. You were given a formal warning, he continued, and yet you persisted in leveraging non-sanctioned systems. You've been operating in defiance of leadership and process architecture, undermining chain of command visibility. God, he loved those phrases, probably highlighted them in his little pocketbook of bureaucratic warfare. Karen slid a thin folder toward me. I didn't open it. I knew what was inside. A termination notice dressed up in boilerplate language printed on overpriced paper. Damon let the silence hang for effect before dropping the real poison. This incident will be noted in your employment history, he said, his tone somehow both smug and somber. Future employers often reach out for clarity. It would be unwise to misrepresent the nature of your dismissal. Translation: I'm going to shadow bomb your career from behind a curtain. Good luck. Still, I said nothing because I wasn't there to argue. I was there to listen carefully, to memorize the shape of the hammer they used, down to the grain. Karen asked if I had anything to say for the record. I stared at Damon, then looked at her. Yeah, I said finally. They'll need to revise the exit clause on tool IP retention. I developed mine independently, off-network. I've got timestamps and system logs. Don't worry, it won't be your problem. That got a blink out of Damon. A real one. Like for the first time, he realized he hadn't swept the whole board. Karen jotted a note. Damon waved his hand dismissively like I was a fly on a sandwich. You're free to gather your things, he said. Security will escort you. Of course. 2 minutes later, a rent-a-cop named Alan stood silently by my cube as I packed a few things I hadn't already digitized or erased. A stained mug that said "Cold like a pirate," a plant that had died 3/4 into Q2, and the backup drive. That was the real prize. Sleek, black, silent. Inside, the last 6 months of Sora logs system. The post wasn't flashy, just a screenshot of the dashboard, a before/after chart, and a caption that read, "This saved our ass last week. Whoever built it, thank you." By noon, it had over 5,000 reactions and 400 comments. I read every single one, heart pounding like a guilty teenager, reading their name in a school rumor thread. Most were just logistics people tagging other logistics people. A few asked for links. One guy said, "Wish I had this 2 months ago. Could have prevented a reroute nightmare." Buried in the replies was a name that stopped my scrolling cold. Damon Rothwell. His comment was short, formal, sterile. Interesting approach. Our team's evaluating a suite-based solution with similar capabilities. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. That smug bastard had clearly seen the post, probably already drafting internal decks trying to pitch some bloated SAP-adjacent monstrosity as cutting edge. I imagine him standing in front of his whiteboard with his name written in red marker above a phrase like disruptive velocity tools. But I knew the truth. Whatever overpriced garbage he was hawking couldn't hold a candle to Gray Grid. Mine was lean, field-tested, built from actual chaos, not slide decks and buzzwords. And Damon was chasing shadows of something he'd already killed without understanding it. Still, I hadn't let myself gloat. The trauma ran too deep. Even as orders ticked up, I kept the server logs open on a second monitor, watching for failures, nervous something would crack. I couldn't relax, couldn't feel proud. Not yet, not fully. Every time I hit refresh on the analytics dashboard, I half expected it to vanish, for a cease and desist to arrive with Damon's greasy signature at the bottom, claiming some buried clause in my old contract gave him ownership of my brain. But none came. Instead, I got an email from the operations lead of a mid-sized trucking network. Saw a gray grid on LinkedIn. Any chance you're accepting new clients? We've got 3 bottlenecks nobody's solved in 18 months. Would love to see what it can do. I stared at it for a long time before replying, 'cause deep down, something dangerous was starting to flicker. Not anger, not revenge, just belief. I was too scared to be happy. But for the first time in months, I wasn't scared of hope. The email hit my inbox at 6:14 a.m. subject line. Nomination opportunity. Applied AI Innovation Award. At first, I thought it was spam. Some automated phishing scam targeting desperate founders who bought too many domains. Then I saw the sender. Innovation panel at globalopsummit.org. Real, verified, respected. I clicked. Inside was an invitation to submit Gray Grid for consideration in the practical implementation of AI for operational systems category at the Global Ops Summit. A name I'd only ever heard spoken in reverent tones by men in sport jackets with Bluetooth headsets. The big leagues, normally reserved for funded startups, deep-pocketed think tanks, or Fortune 100 golden children with teams. I had a cat and a coffee pot. They wrote that Gray Grid had come highly recommended based on real-world impact metrics circulating in industry circles. The deadline for submission was in 8 days. They even offered a contact for assistance, someone named Dana, to help indie applicants through the application maze. I just sat there blinking, coffee going cold in my hand. That quiet disbelief, every instinct in your body screams, don't get excited. It's a trap. But it wasn't. I read it 5 times, forwarded it to Mark with Just. He called me immediately, half shouting, "This is huge, man. Do it. Apply. You got the numbers." He wasn't wrong. Gray Grid had gone from sketchy MVP to lean, adaptable beast. In 6 months, I'd onboard 17 clients across 5 states, all running different warehouse ops, all posting measurable improvements. Some even gave me permission to use anonymized data. I stayed up all night writing the submission. I included before and after KPI deltas, efficiency gain projections, screenshots of the dashboard evolution, and testimonials clipped from emails and LinkedIn posts. It wasn't sleek, it was raw, but it was real. 2 days after I hit submit, I got another email. This one wasn't official. It came from someone I hadn't spoken to in almost a year. Helen Wexley, former VP of Operations back at my old company. One of the few execs who'd managed to maintain both competence and a soul. She left the company 6 months before my termination, citing leadership differences. We'd barely interacted, just a few emails, a couple hallway nods, but she always looked me in the eye when she talked. Her email was short. Saw your name on the Global Ops shortlist. Just so, you know, I'm one of the judges this year, and I remember everything. Looking forward to your pitch, Helen. I reread it 5 times. My hands shook because now it wasn't just a shot at redemption. It was a shot at truth, at someone from inside the old machine saying, I saw what they did to you. I saw what you built. And at the same time, the whispers were coming in from the other direction. A buddy from IT, still under the radar, still loyal, sent me screenshots from Damon's division. A new optimization suite had been rolled out, some bloated SAP derivative with a quarterly license cost that could fund a moon landing. It was buggy, clunky. Reports were late. Forecasts were off, and their Chicago hub had just failed a logistics audit for the first time in 5 years. The kicker, Damon had renamed the new tool Vantage and was pitching it as a next-gen evolution in lean logistics. He was doing press calls, panels, standing in front of graphs someone else built, in a suit someone else paid for, selling a lie someone else died under. But the numbers didn't lie, and neither did Helen. I wasn't fully celebrating yet. The smell of old fear still clung to everything I touched. There was always a part of me that expected Damon to appear in my inbox with legal threats or worse, veiled back channel sabotage. But this time felt different. This time wasn't a ghost in the machine. I was the machine. And for the first time, the industry wasn't just looking, it was watching. The message came through 11:03 a.m., 24 hours before I was scheduled to walk across the stage in front of a room full of execs, analysts, founders, and every gatekeeper who'd ever closed a door in my face. It was a screenshot forwarded by Helen. No subject line, just a clipped PR blurb from my old company's site, clean, corporate, dripping with spin. Building on earlier in-house innovations developed under former team leads, our current optimization initiative continues to reflect our legacy of logistical intelligence and internal ingenuity. Underneath, a quote from Damon Rothwell himself. The groundwork for today's success was laid years ago by those who understood the need for smarter systems inside our walls. Inside our walls. They didn't name gray grid outright. They didn't need to. The implication was loud enough to rattle the windows. Damon was positioning my exile as a stepping stone, a convenient origin myth, as if my tool had grown from the fertile soil of their benevolence instead of being crushed under their boot and rebuilt from ash. I didn't scream. I didn't punch a wall. I opened a folder titled Sora_proof_burners for ready and began assembling the payload. I attached system logs with timestamps stretching back 2 fiscal years. Early dev notes showing build iterations conducted off-network. Old Git commits with date sign messages. I included the email I'd sent months ago warning legal about Damon's claim to IP bluff. Even pulled screen grabs from Slack messages where coworkers thanked me for routing tips long before Damon caught wind. Each file, each line of metadata, was a surgical strike. I zipped the folder, uploaded it to a secure drive, and sent to the award committee's private review inbox with a single line of text. In response to recent claims of shared authorship, please find attached proof of independent development. James Spencer, Gray Grid Systems. Then I closed the laptop, sat in the dark for 15 minutes, and let the silence wrap around me like a lead vest. By 3 p.m., Dana from the committee responded. Thanks, James. The panel is reviewing. You'll be contacted shortly. Appreciate your transparency. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table, rewriting my acceptance speech again and again. The first line had changed a dozen times in my head. Sometimes sarcastic. Sometimes they bury you because they don't know you're a seed. Too cliché. Sometimes angry. Innovation is what happens when bureaucracy stops watching. Too smug. But none of it hit. Then, around 2:13 a.m., it came to me, simple, icy, sharp enough to cut a legacy in half. I typed out in bold at the top of the page, then stared at it until sunrise. I'd like to thank my old boss for firing me. 12 words. But behind them, months of silence, humiliation, exile, and fire. It wasn't about bitterness. It was about precision. Because tomorrow, when I stepped onto that stage, I wouldn't just be collected. I stepped to the mic, cleared my throat, and looked out at the sea of faces. Hundreds in the room. Thousands more watching the live stream. Industry titans, analysts, maybe even a few ghosts from my old office pretending they hadn't doubted me. And then I said it. I'd like to thank my old boss for firing me. Laughter, not polite, not canned. Real, the kind that hits like thunder. A few heads turned, knowingly. Others smirked. Everyone understood. I let the moment breathe. Then I leaned in. When I started building Gray Grid, it wasn't a startup. It wasn't a product. It was a lifeline, a way to stop hemorrhaging hours, trucks, money because the people in charge cared more about process than progress. I didn't get funding. I didn't get mentorship. I got written up, publicly reprimanded, fired. The room quieted. But I left with something more valuable than approval. I left with proof that the system was broken, that it could be rebuilt, and that no title, no corner office, no layered bureaucracy could stop an idea whose time had already come. I didn't say Damon's name. I didn't have to. Anyone who'd worked in that world long enough knew exactly who I was talking about. Gray Grid didn't win this award because it's flashy. It won because it works. Because it was built by someone who lived the chaos. And because it never forgot the people who keep the supply chain alive. Not the ones in the boardrooms, but the ones in the trenches. I paused, looking at the cameras. To every quiet coder, Every logistics manager drowning in spreadsheets. Every analyst told to stay in their lane. Build anyway. They can steal your title, your access, your income, but they can't steal your vision. That belongs to you. The crowd stood, all of them. My ears were ringing. My hands were trembling, but my voice didn't shake. When I walked off stage, I didn't feel high. I felt empty in the best possible way, like a wound had finally scabbed over. Backstage, I found a folding chair near the curtain, far from the flashbulbs and PR teams, and sat down with the plaque in my lap. It felt heavier now, warmer. My phone buzzed in my pocket, notifications exploding. LinkedIn press inquiries, old coworkers texting. Holy shit. Mark messaged. Damon's already off the directory. No announcement, just gone. I didn't reply. I just looked at the award, ran my fingers over the etched metal, and whispered so soft only I could hear it. You weren't crazy. You were early. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.